Well, good morning everybody. Thank you very much indeed for joining us for this particular members forum. Would everybody stand up for a minute? Right now, sit down everybody who owns this travel business. Okay. I want to start by reminding you all that this is your travel business that you own. It's part of Midcounties Co-operative which you own. So in a sense it's ridiculous of me to say welcome because it's your business and we're here to be held accountable to you as the owners of this travel business about what's happening in the world of Midcounties cooperative travel.
My name's Alistair. I'm your new Group General Manager for Travel. I've been with the Society since November last year, after a very interesting period for travel where part of cooperative travel merged with Thomas Cook. I'm sure you've seen or heard that happen. I'm going to explain some of the process behind that and some of the outputs and why that indeed is good for us here at Midcounties. I'm here with Sue, who's General Manager of Distribution. Now, you might know the word distribution as delivering things to people in trucks, in food, but actually in travel, distribution is how you get holidays to consumers. So we do that through a number of routes, through websites, through shops, through call centres, and Sue runs all of those businesses in our growing travel group. Now, at any one time in the market sells about 40 million holidays a year. And you might have heard package holidays over the last few years. And package holidays are slightly less than half the whole number of holidays on sale. And depending on when you measure holidays, you've either got 2 or 3 seasons on sale. So here, you see summer 11, about 7 million passengers at the end of that season. Summer season ends at the end of October. And then you've got the current winter season, the current summer season, which is halfway through, and then we've just launched for the winter to come. So when you aggregate all of those, you get to the point of around 15 million package holidays. Now, there's no point in doing all this stuff, buying, building, acquiring, landing new stores, unless we can control it, control the investment, and control the way in which we manage and secure the monies that you let us have to grow this business. So I'm now going to hand over to Sue, who will finish this presentation by letting you know some of the controls we're going to put in place to make sure your investment is safe with us. Thank you.
So first of all, customer service. There's a mechanism that's used across the society called a customer loyalty index score. It's where people talk to customers, whether it's in travel or whether it's in food, ask them to score us between 1 and 10, and as you can see there, we've got 85% of the people that use our services score us 9 or 10.
The Eurozone, which is on all our minds one way and another. I wonder, are you anticipating, what sort of effect is that having on your business? In as much as can you anticipate what's going to happen? That's 1 of 5, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, well, to answer that, I think clearly it's of great concern to all of us. I think equally, the euro rate has never been as high. Out in branches the other day, it was selling as much as 122. It's not been that for a large number of years, actually. So I think there might be a continued shift away from Greece and back into Spain. Spain put their prices down to try and get increased tourism, and I think customers will seize the opportunity, actually. I think the other thing that I actually didn't say and should have done during my presentation is the reason most of those balls were below the line just shows that most customers are booking late rather than early.
I'm an old age pensioner, right? So I have plenty of time for travel. And what I try to do, because I don't have the opportunity to raise my income, I'm on a fixed income, is to make savings as much as possible. For a few years before I retired, I collected air miles. I found, to my dismay, I couldn't use them as I wanted to use them because they didn't belong to me. They belonged to the air miles company and they dictated how I used them. I also have used a very rare credit card, a co-op credit card, which is a travel one. And I've used it for the past 4 years, and I think I've saved getting on for £2,000 on booking holidays, travel, etc., etc. Now, this year I went into the local travel co-op travel shop in Swindon, and I said, I want to talk to you about our next adventure. What sort of discount can you give me using this card? And she didn't know anything about it.
Okay, so let's see where we go with that question. Are you going to take that, Sue?
Yeah, I think the link, even with Cooperative Group and Cooperative Bank, has always been a bit tenuous, if I'm honest. And I know because that's where I've come from in my last life. The travel credit card, the bank have been trying to move away from for a number of years, and it's now seen as a legacy card for the bank. So I think there's something, last time I looked, about 15,000 active people still wanted to use the card. The group and the bank are trying to work together on the introduction of a new card, and independent societies will buy into it. So as at the last information I had towards the end of last year, that was due for launch this summer, and you'll probably naturally take a view. The difficulty, of course, is when you get an affinity piece of business, a piece of business where the card supplier wants more volume, you want more discount, we want to retain our margin, something's got to give. And actually, the cost was too high. So that's the reason why you'll probably find that it will come round again and you'll be offered a new card, but you might find there's much more of a challenge on refining the benefit. So it won't be 5% off everything, it will be, here's the discounts you've got on a tariff. So we'd like to help, but we're once removed in that we'll be the independent society who'll buy in to something that will be created between Cooperative Bank and Cooperative Group.
Yes, it's just a question about, there must be lots of single people like myself, with widows and widowers, and yet when you go to book a cruise, the tour operators, they sort of say, oh well, we've only had a few cabins for single people, and surely it doesn't justify the tour operators charging you double because I want to go on a cruise, and they said, oh well, no, it'll cost me £2,000 to go on the cruise, and it's double the amount that I was going to pay, and I don't think that's fair.
So Sue, what can we do for our members who want to travel as singles?
You know what? Some of the cruise operators, and actually even some of the tour operators now in hoteliers, do recognise that there is a much increased volume in single travellers, and at times they do, and actually I'm aware of cruise companies that are doing reduced or no supplements in cabins, or at times that they don't charge a single room supplement. As a body, we do work very closely with our tour operators, and that's why they do listen and try and take action in that. Looking at working closely with more tour operators is about knowledge. As you can see, we've made a commitment that we're going to train and give knowledge and training to our people to learn about this massive world that we live in. And actually, I totally agree that because it's a smaller proportion of our market, then a lot of the knowledge does tend to be overseas. But we are working on that, and it has improved, as you can see, and we've done a lot more in the last 2 years since we took that on board, because absolutely we recognise that we could absolutely be better at it.
So thank you very much, everybody, for those questions. Welcome, everybody, to the opportunity to hear about your travel business. So I'm going to hand over now to Alistair, who's going to deliver the first part of the session.
Okay, well, good morning, everybody, and welcome. Thank you for attending our session. My name's Alistair. I'm the Group General Manager of Travel. So here you see the title of Travel Distribution. In travel, you may think distribution as trucks taking food to stores. In travel, it's how people receive holidays. So all of our companies selling holidays to consumers. Today, we have now a standalone business that has its own governance, operates itself. We do all our own commercial buying, our own marketing, and we have huge commitment from our independent suppliers. Jet2 Holidays have extended their flying into East Midlands, partly because of the distribution that we're going to bring from that airport with our growth programme. And we're working with hoteliers and hotel groups independently to give exclusive offers on stock. Very exciting. And actually one of the first big moments that was the big teller for us is that Midcounties used to deliver about 10% of the volume to the Co-operative travel group. So when we were buying terms, it was about a tenth. Every one of those tour operators has given us the same terms as they were giving the larger cooperative group. That just shows the commitment they've got to our sustainable growth. And we've got a big queue of people who want to join our consortium. And not only independent agents, but some independent cooperatives as well. We already now have Channel Islands and Chelmsford Star Co-ops buying their travel goods and services through us. And of all the independent agents, there's about 4,000 agencies in the UK. Half of them buy through a consortium, so it's a big market to be able to go at. We launched that on June the 1st, but we don't want thousands of small agents. We want a small number of very large agents who we can work with collaboratively and strategically as we go. But there's no point in you signing off all this investment and support for the growth of our sustained travel business unless we can give you a return. To give you a return, we need to have very tight and strict controls on how we operate the business. I'm going to hand over to Sue now, who will talk through how we intend to develop and control our business going forward.
Thanks, Alistair. So what I just want to talk to you about is all that exciting news that's happening in our travel group, and actually we just need to continually monitor and measure, ensure that we're still going to return a profitable business at the end of the year. So how do we do that? I'm going to talk through some of the customer service initiatives. That's absolutely key. There's a lot of agents on the high street. What's going to be our point of difference is our service. That doesn't come without looking at the development of our people, the colleague training and development. I'm going to look at how we work together with the bigger society in steering wheel targets, which I'll talk about later, and actually a couple of initiatives that we do to turn up the volume in some of the services that we sell. And as Alistair said, what a great opportunity now. We're a much bigger business, and that gives opportunities for our people to move on and take a career, because we've got, whether you want to go out in the branch network now, we've got more scope, we've got a much wider trading area. Of course, we've got more central operations, new commercial teams that are in place, bigger marketing teams. So that gives people an opportunity to diversify within our business. So how do we become more successful? It's about what we sell. I want to talk to you about 2 years ago, I did a presentation, and you may have been here, when I was challenged by some of the members about actually what are we doing about the non-flying holidays, the greener element. And actually from that AGM, it was about we need to promote more about the greener type holidays.
Hi. You mentioned complaints. What area have they been from mainly about?
The majority, and actually we tend to get more complaints when the change between flying programs, a lot of the airlines, particularly, if we talk about Thomas Cook and what's happening with some of their consolidation, when tour operators have to consolidate, they change aircraft, so they change flying programs, they can change flying days, so that will impact on customers. Occasionally people will go out to accommodations and it's not as good, because actually what's written up in brochures is not as good as it could be. So where do the majority of our cases come from? Actually, the suppliers, but that's why we monitor those, and we've got a commercial department that would feed back that information, because if that got, and it has at times, we had, I can remember last year with Olympic holidays, they lost their flying and they were just flying some horrendous aircraft which generated lots of complaints. So we're able to talk to those tour operators and say, unless you get your act together, we actually really don't want to be selling things like that. But it's not all about the tour operators. At times we don't get it right within our shops. So we recognise that. So that's why we have the observations, the feedback, because service is not always what it should be, but it's not the majority of the complaints, it's tour operators.
Good morning, John McPhail, part of MSc and part-time funeral care worker. My wife of 46 years has been my travel agent and has done an excellent job until we started organising one of our trips this year. And my great question is one of the relationship between co-op travel, Midcounties travel and the group, because this has never been explained to us in the 4 years that we've been resident in Oxfordshire. My wife booked her next holiday, which was a cruise through the co-op, not realising that it wasn't Midcounties, and no one told her that. We're not sure that we, in fact, received our staff colleague discount and indeed points, and when we booked, we were not told of the difference between the group and Midcounties. Since joining Funeral at Oxford recently, I've made contact with one of your offices, Sue, and for future bookings we'll certainly be involved there. But basically, we've been told we can do nothing about this particular holiday, which is in the region of £3,500. The deposit has been paid and the balance is going to be paid next week. But basically, we're struggling a bit to understand the communications between the groups.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you to speak to John separately afterwards about his individual case. But Alistair, could you just go through again the relationship between the two parts of the co-op travel movement?
It's a very good point, and if we in the room struggle to understand the difference, our standard consumer is going to be hugely confused, and it'll be a bit of a journey, this, because the 1,300 stores that now Thomas Cook Group have got, including the 400 co-op stores that they've taken from Midlands with about 100 and Group with about 300, will consolidate. When that consolidation's finished, probably a year and a half time, you'll see much less, and we'll all know what those territories are.
Can you explain why we have to get to airports so much before the flight? I've never understood that, and I'd like to know why they operate that policy. You could be stuck there for 4 hours before you leave. I'd just like to know. I'm Joan Tranter from the Forest of Dean, by the way. Thank you.
Yeah, again, a very good question. I think that there's two dynamics there. The security controls are bigger, and at times where there's lots of flights going in for the first flight out in the morning at 8 a.m. or last flight home at night, last thing that you want is lots of planes turning up at once trying to go through passport control or security, on the way through. So tour operators will always recommend a too great an amount of time. Equally, because half of our holidays going forward will probably be repackaged, if a lot of that is with a low-cost flight, lots of things that you can do yourself to mitigate that, everything from, checking in, checking your bags in, to kind of mitigate the time. And I think you'll find, provided you book pre-seats together, so your seats sat together as part of the transaction that our agents will be recommending that you do, you kind of, you should still be at, 2-hour tops. If you're in the middle of the peak holidays and it's Saturday morning and you're flying out at 8 o'clock, you might want to give it a bit longer. But actually, the 3 hours, 4 hours is just for the airport to mitigate their own problems, really.
Thank you. How long has this organisation been known as Midcounties? Because the title, I think, is confusing. We in Warwickshire consider ourselves to be in the absolute centre of the country, and yet I believe, other than the head office, there's almost no retail outlets in our county.
Yeah, Midcounties was formed just over 7 years ago, and actually if you look at other cooperatives on the high street as well, we bought into the cooperative brand. So if you look at the cooperative group and Midlands Co-op and other societies, actually you don't see their brand either. So actually it's about the fact that we're part of that. Actually when people are buying holidays, they actually talk about co-op travel. If somebody says to me, where do I work? It's co-op travel. I think it's actually, and the fact that Alistair talked about that great URL that we've got, that's how people talk to us. In fact, we probably don't use cooperative travel ourselves when we talk about it, and I've been at this society for 20 years now. When it was co-op, when it was West Midlands Co-op, when it first, when I first came, and actually, we didn't have West Midlands on the door either. It's about getting the travel brand across, and maybe not the underlying society.
Do you have business travel? Do you deal with business travel for people going to conferences or people going to workplaces in other countries? And do the other business within the cooperative use you for their travel, say, for example, food, if they go to see suppliers?
That's an interesting one. In the role before this, one of the companies that joined the joint venture was Co-operative Travel Management, which was a consolidation of lots of business travel, a bit of it owned by Midlands, and a lot of it owned by Group. It was about 120 million in size, operating out of 18 offices through the UK. The brand works really well on business travel, and indeed its biggest customer was Co-operative Group, who spent around £4 million on internal travel, where obviously the margin from that can be taken internally. So it's something at some point in the future we may look at. It's not without risk, though, because the one big difference that we need to understand, and the board will need to understand, is that where travel generally creates cash, so we collect it from consumers before we pay it over to operators, so most of the year it's one of the few businesses that's cash positive. With business travel, you create debt because you're offering 30-day terms to independent businesses. That said, the cooperative brand works really well around business travel. We do some of it in home-based agents, small amounts, but it's part of the strategy we've not quite got to yet, whilst we're bedding in some of the other stuff.
Okay, so I hope you will agree that your business is being run effectively and efficiently, but also against the values that you have set for the board and for the management team. The values of doing things ethically, doing things well, and doing things with a spirit of cooperation.